Hello to our freaky family. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Kandi.
And this is Sips of Crime. Welcome back, everybody. How are you guys doing?
What have you been up to?
Oh my gosh, today did not go as planned, did it?
No, it didn't.
It did not. I had so much planned today. And I was literally, in the process of finishing my makeup, waiting to figure out if we could buy alcohol today at 10 or 12 o'clock in North Carolina. Turns out, if anybody's curious, it is, in fact, still 12. In the middle of doing all of that, my power goes out. Just went out. And we were supposed to record a bunch of stuff today. And nothing that I had originally planned actually ended up happening. But the power's back on and you're here now.
Yes, I am. Which, it's crazy because as soon as you said your power went out, I knew ours was going to go out. Ours goes out if the wind blows the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it stayed on, and I'm like, now, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Usually I'm the one that loses power.
I was just getting ready to say, I live right across our county line, where we are local. So technically me and Kandi, even though we only live about 15 minutes away, we're technically in two different counties. So we have two different power companies and mine is normally the one that's good. If I do lose power, it's normally a very short thing. It's no big deal. But today it was off for, oh my gosh, how long was it?
Almost 5.
Ugh. But it's back on now. We're back in the game. But to answer your question, I've done nothing today.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, though.
Nothing
wrong
today.
With that.
My husband has our daughter up at the Creeper Trail.
What's that?
The bike riding trail.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're a few hours away. It was actually really funny too because they specifically left so that we could have the day.
Did they get rained out too?
No. Everything was
good.
fine up there. But it was just funny because he was like, I know you're going to be so busy with Kandi tomorrow. I'll just take Dakota. And I was like, that's really sweet. And then
that has not happened.
That has not happened. So, like I said, we're here now. We're super excited. And we've got a big episode for you guys today. So what have you been doing today since you had power?
Nothing. My child actually slept till 9 o'clock.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It was so great. Oh, you guys, it was so great. I did catch the last end of Sweet Home Alabama again for the cajillionth time.
I love that movie.
That is my all-time favorite movie.
Is it? Are you deep? I mean, you just said it live. That's final statement? Final answer?
Yes, that is my number one. Could watch it all day. Every day.
Yeah. I love that movie. It's a really good one. I heard that they were talking about possibly coming out with a second one.
It'll never be the first one.
No. I cannot stand. I'm a stickler when it comes to sequels and things like that, prequels. I'm so invested in the original storyline that sequels just never do it for me. They don't ever live up to the hype, especially if they change the character.
Oh, that messes it all up.
If you are not going to have the same actor play that character the same again, just don't bother. Right. Just don't bother. It's not worth it. It's just such a waste of time. I will not watch it. I can't stand it.
But if Reese Witherspoon...
Yes.
If they did have to do that, they could use her daughter for her,
Oh, yeah.
They look identical.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are both absolutely gorgeous. Reese Witherspoon is definitely one of my favorite actresses. She's just an absolute delight. I love everything about her. She's just the Southern charm, that sweet, you never see her in the news doing anything crazy.
Right.
You never. But I think I would watch a sequel to Sweet Home Alabama again, as long as the characters remain the original actors and actresses.
But I can't promise that it would be my favorite.
Yeah. They should have her daughter play their child.
I think that would be a fantastic idea.
Yeah. Really, really would. Well, after the day that we've had, after all of our plans went awry, I'm ready to drink.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. So, Kandi, what do we have today?
We have a Paradise Peak, Washington State, sweet Riesling.
Getting into those sweeter wines. It's summertime.
Yes, but I think this one might be a little sweet for us. Because its scale on the back, of course, is dry, medium sweet, and sweet. We are right almost in the middle of sweet. So, we're going to see. Paradise Peak Sweet Riesling was picked at the peak of ripeness, capturing the intense and well-developed fruit flavors that typified this variety. Enjoy this refreshing, sweet white wine chilled.
Cheers. That is a little sweeter, but oddly enough, it's not
as sweet as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have like that stinging, like sweet sugary bite. Mm-hmm. But it is vanilla forward.
Yeah, I get that.
Are you getting that? It's light. It's not, very heavy. It's very refreshing.
I like it.
I do too. I actually, Washington State.
I think for a summer wine, just for summer though, I would give it a 5.
I'll give it a 5 for a sweet wine. I don't have a problem with it at all. It seems like something that's easy to drink. Like I said, it's not heavy. It's not super sweet. I could have that with food, I think. Mm-hmm. I could easily drink that without it overpowering anything that I'm eating. So, yeah, I actually normally like a Riesling.
It has a little bit of a lemony taste. Do you taste that? Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, after it sits on the palate a little bit, you do get kind of a lemon, hint afterwards, though. It's, very much on the after.
It's not like lemonade.
Mm-mm. I would even maybe venture to say just citrus.
Yeah, maybe that's what.
Because it could, I think that could even be kind of an orange.
Maybe it's a mixture.
It's actually really good. I really like this one. I think this will be a really great summer, sweet sipping wine on the porch type thing for you guys. So yeah, I'm good with a 5.
There we go. It's a 5. A sweet wine to go with our really crazy story.
Yes. You guys, we've got a big one today, so buckle up. I'm going to be telling you a story about a guy whose murder spree was just as interesting as the time he spent in prison for it. We're doing the co-ed killer, Ed Kemper. We're doing the big guy.
Woohoo.
The big guy. Yeah. We were in need of another serial killer. I was in the mood. Not to knock it out,
I'll take it.
So, he is charming. He's smart. He's a necrophiliac, and this guy cannot shut up.
Great.
Yeah. So, grab a glass.
Grab a friend.
And let's dive in. So, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start setting the scene for you guys a little bit. All right? We're going to take a little trip back in time, back to Santa Cruz, California in 1970.
All right.
So, are you there with us? Did you make it? Great. Okay. So you've got your light denim, blue jean bell bottoms on.
Mm-hmm. That are coming back into style.
With your flower crown, which is also coming back into style. You hitchhiked all the way to California. The University of Santa Cruz had just opened in 1965, so just a few years earlier, and it's gaining a lot of popularity, so the town is buzzing. You look around and you see everyone dancing and enjoying their summer of love. The famous arcade game Pong had just hit the mainstream. Those really cool, old school arcade games with the, the big wall games.
Oh, yeah.
The sound of dial-up internet and the iconic AOL notification, "You've got mail," are frequent background noises. And your family just got their first VCR.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that's where we're at, okay? The floppy disk had also just been invented, but you could care less about that because those crazy computer things were never going to be something that you actually would ever need.
Do you remember using a floppy disk?
Yes, of course I do. It's terrible. Crazy? And people don't even know what they are these days.
Right?
They actually
do not pull the thing back because then all of your stuff is gone.
Gone. I'm telling you, if that thing got dirty, oh Lord. And people actually think that they're flexible. They are not. They're not. All you needed was a suitcase and a ride, and those two things could take you anywhere. Unfortunately, this was also the year that Santa Cruz, California was officially named the murder capital of the world, and everyone's summer of love didn't quite go as planned.
I would say not.
On April 24th of 1973, the Santa Cruz police get a call from a guy in a phone booth confessing to killing his mother, her best friend, and to being the infamous co-ed killer who they had been trying to catch for months. The police rush to the phone booth where the caller still stands with the receiver in his hand. He exits the phone booth and police are shocked because standing in front of them is all of 6'9" tall, 285 pounds of Edmund Emil Kemper III.
That's really tall.
He's a big guy, you guys. He's a big guy. He's a real big guy. Edmund Emil Kemper III was born in Burbank, California on December 18th, 1948, to Edmund Emil Kemper II and Clarnell Kemper. He had an older sister and a younger sister, Susan and Aline. This was unfortunately not a big, happy family. The parents fought, and all the kids confirmed that it was quite frequently. Huge blowouts. So they divorced pretty early in Ed's life. 1957, Ed was 9 years old. And we're going to be calling him Ed, by the way, because we're on a first name basis here. You guys know that we always use their first names. Their last names always just seem so impersonal to me. I don't know. I don't like it.
But we can't just sit there and say these long names.
Right. So he's Ed. Everybody knows him as Ed Kemper. So he's Ed. I will tell you guys, he is the third. So his father and his grandfather are also Edmund Emil Kempers.
Oh, Lord.
But I promise it won't be very confusing for long. So just stick with me. So anyway, they split up pretty early in Ed's life, and his dad is then pretty much out of the picture. He goes to live with his mother, who moves everyone to Montana. And at this point, we can clearly see who's been the instigator in all of these fights. It's definitely his mom, Clarnell.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Clarnell is an absolute nightmare, okay? Ed Jr., our Ed's dad, well, I don't like that. Not our Ed.
It's not our Ed.
Our story's Ed. So his dad, he was a World War II vet, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what he had to say. Quote, "Suicide missions and atomic bomb testing was nothing compared to living with her." That's what her ex-husband has to say about her.
That's absolutely awful.
Yeah. She's rude and loud. She drinks heavily. She's also kind of like fairly scared of Ed. I mean, he's a big guy, don't get me wrong, but it's your son.
Right.
She calls him every name in the book, and she really uses his size as like the basis of her ridicule. And obviously this is very traumatizing to him at a young age. He can't help how big he is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the man's tall. It's not like it was just a big point for her. And saying that he would never amount to anything, just really belittling stuff to any child, but let alone your own. She once said that her reasoning for not being motherly towards him was because she didn't want him to turn out gay.
What?
I personally think I would have rather preferred gay Ed Kemper. He probably would have been a great guy at that point.
What mother would even think that not being motherly towards their child would help them not be gay?
Well, what I find so funny is, it would be so terrible if he turned out gay. Let's just turn him into a murderer.
Oh, yeah.
You know. But as we always say, feel bad for the child.
Not the adult.
Not the adult. She kept him in their basement, which he claims to have had no light other than a burning furnace down there. So that was like the only thing that lit up the room, was the furnace that heated the house. So they obviously, like, his only light, he claims, was flames. And this led him to kind of like really demonic thoughts and visions. He said that it almost felt like that furnace was like the entrance to hell whenever he was a kid. And he's young at this point, you guys. So
I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, being a child, my mom being a complete bitch, and I'm basically living in a basement with no light, and all I have is a fire.
Yeah.
That would mentally screw someone up.
I'd have to agree. He says that he could hear the rats in the basement scurrying around at night in the dark.
That makes my skin crawl.
One thing about Ed, he does not shut up from the moment that he's arrested. And we're going to be hearing a lot from him. Really, when I say, I mean, legitimately, grab a glass, maybe a seat.
Maybe the bottle.
Maybe a snack, because you guys are in it now with us for the long haul. So we're going to hear a lot of his own verbal recollections.
Oh, lovely.
Of this, yeah. He was clearly showing signs of some mental illness pretty early in his life as well. He would cut the limbs of his, and the heads off of his sister's dolls. Before moving to family cats at age 10.
Lord.
Yeah. He actually kept the butchered remains of these cats in his closet until his mother found them and told him that he had to get rid of it.
Did that not stink?
Well, let's not take you to the doctor. I'm sorry, but if I find a dead cat in my child's closet, the first call we're making is the doctor. And then hopefully maybe a psychiatrist, No, we're not going to give him...
all of the above.
Yeah, we're not giving him any help. Just, she pretty much was like, back to the basement, no more dead cats. Him and his sisters would also play games together, like electric chair and gas chamber.
I never played that kind of stuff with my brother.
No, he would sit in a chair, and they would tie him to that chair, and then, they would hit a pretend switch, and he would just, writhe in pain like that until he died. Gas chamber was a little bit more fun. They would throw him into a room, and then he would do kind of the same thing, just kind of writhe there in pain. Yeah. So.
All right.
Right. Yes.
That's disturbing.
Yes. So after years of living this way, very isolated at school, again, he was a very, very large kid even, and so he was very exiled at school. Same situation at home, constant verbal abuse from his mother. He runs away to hunt down his father in 1964 at age 15. Ed is very hurt to find that his dad has since remarried, moved on, started a new family, and has unfortunately no room for Eddie boy. Yeah, so he actually sends him to live with his grandparents, his maternal grandparents, Maud and Edmund Kemper the first, in North Fork, California. He says at one point that his grandfather was actually one of the only people that he ever loved, ever really respected. He really looked up to his grandfather, but his grandmother was the complete opposite story, and one you've heard before. His grandmother is exactly like his mother.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
So that's where she got it from.
Yeah, she's loud and argumentative, and he sees her the exact same way that he sees his mother. She's constantly getting on his case, and one day he's outside shooting birds with his new shotgun that he had gotten, and when she tells him to stop killing the birds, which I consider to be a reasonable request. You have a little boy. If he's outside killing your birds in your driveway, would you tell him to stop?
Okay. If it's just like a BB gun or something.
This was a shotgun.
I know.
Sawed-off hunting shotgun.
Then no, we can't be doing that. We can't be blowing birds to bits. Mm-hmm. We just can't be doing that. That's not appropriate. We can't be doing that. If one day you take your BB gun out and you want to shoot a bird or a squirrel, a few of them, okay, let's practice shooting.
We live in the South. It's what our kids do.
But
taking a sawed-off shotgun to your
driveway.
We're
not blowing up a bunch of fucking birds in the driveway.
Yeah. So his grandmother makes this very reasonable request to please stop killing the birds in the yard. He shoots her execution style in the head at her kitchen table while she's writing a child's book.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
All because she asked him not to kill the birds.
Correct. Yeah. So, there we go. He thinks to himself, oh no, what have I done? He says, my grandfather is going to be so hurt to find her this way. And I can't do that to him because you remember, he likes his grandfather a lot. So, what's a boy to do?
Not shoot his grandma in the back of the head.
Well, no, instead, he shoots his grandfather as soon as he gets home, claiming it was a mercy killing. Same day.
But he loved him so much. How in the world?
Like I said, he claims it was a mercy killing. He claims that his grandfather was going to be so hurt by seeing his wife in that state that Ed had to do it. The first thing that he does after these two murders, what do you think? What do you think the first thing that he does after these murders are?
He goes and kills some more birds.
He does not. He calls his mother.
What?
The woman he just, had to get away from, that he ran away from. Yeah, first call he makes after these two murders. Clarnell answers the phone and tells him that he needs to call the police. And so he does and waits for them to arrive. He is arrested and booked at a state hospital as a criminally insane juvenile. He was diagnosed temporarily with paranoid schizophrenia, and this is where he will stay until he's 21 years old.
I'm sure there was some messed up stuff that he saw.
Yeah. During his time at this hospital, he was a model prisoner. The guards liked him. He was very helpful around the prison. They couldn't understand really what was wrong with him. So once he's admitted, the doctors immediately start their own examinations with their own testing and their own doctors. And they determine that he isn't schizophrenic at all. He couldn't be, because he literally meets none of the required criteria. So they reverse that diagnosis pretty quickly. The hospital has no clue what to do with him now. So they just kind of toss him in a cell, and that's how he grows up. He won everybody over during his years there and ended up getting a ton of perks for this. He was, at the end of this, he was allowed to administer psychiatric tests to other patients.
No, absolutely not.
I say patients because this was a state hospital. Yes, there were prisoners there who were mentally insane, but there were also just regular mental patients there, like regular people. Like I said, he's allowed to administer these tests, which of course allows him to know all of the correct answers.
Right.
It allows him to properly pass these tests with flying colors. And, he grew up in that hospital with those people. He learned from them how to kill and never leave a witness, So, this is the environment, thinking 15 to 21. That is your absolute, major adolescent years there. That is the time when you're really growing up and growing into yourself and learning what you like and what you don't like.
We're learning how to not be schizophrenic when we are.
And he's, learning pretty much how to do life inside of this mental hospital. He's also considered to be very smart. I mentioned this, in the very beginning of the episode. I personally hesitate to use that word. He has a very high IQ. And was considered to be of above average intelligence. He says that he has no idea that this was the case, though. He said, in fact, most of the time, most of his life, he spent thinking that he was stupid or slow because of all of the ridicule that his mother gave, just everything. Another reason I hesitate to use this word is because he kind of, completely fumbles through his next couple of murders. And I'm not saying that there's a correct way to murder, necessarily. But you'll see as we go through the story, he just seems really unorganized. He just seems very panicky. And those, to me, aren't really characteristics of somebody who's, super, smart. You know what I'm saying? Right. So he's able to learn these tests, back and forth. And in 1969, at the age of 21, he is released on his birthday in December from the hospital with the doctor's approval. He had convinced them all that he was mentally sane, and they had concluded that he had killed his grandparents out of kind of a one-time, once-over fit of rage, and that he was no longer a threat to society. There is one problem, though, and there's just one. It's itty-bitty problem. Against the doctor's orders at the hospital, against their recommendation, he is released into his mother's care by the court system.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so the doctors at this hospital have literally been telling this guy for years through his therapies and stuff like that, just cut her off. He's
here we go.
Yeah, they told him not to even send a Christmas card. Don't worry about birthdays. She's done her damage. Let it be. Just cut her off. And the first thing that the court system says is, yes, you're rehabilitated. You can leave. You're no longer a threat to society, but you got to go home to mommy.
Yeah, that's real smart.
Yeah. This was a condition of his parole, too. So he didn't have a choice. His little perk of this, though, is that his entire juvenile record at this point is expunged. Poof.
No.
Gone.
You can't.
Gone. It's gone. He never killed his grandparents, according to his records.
That's not okay.
Mm-mm. So he goes back into this toxic environment, and his mother is always on his case again. She's yelling at him all the time. He's just getting madder and madder. He does his best to blend into society. His mother worked at the University of California in Santa Cruz, so he moves in with her into this college town. He gets friendly with the locals and starts hanging out at the jury room bar where all the cops hung out. It was right across from the courthouse in town. Mm-hmm. So, like, the cops would go over there after court and stuff. And it was just, like, a really popular little, dive bar. So, after hanging out with these people and kind of being reintroduced into society, he decides that he would probably make a pretty good police officer at some point. But he never actually makes that work because he exceeds the height requirement.
There's a height requirement?
They tell the motherfucker he's too big to be a cop. Yeah.
What the hell?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
how is that even a thing?
Yep. He's too tall. He's too big. He can't.
Like, I get if you can't pass, like, what is it, the physical test or whatever. Like, okay. You can't pass it. You can't be a cop. Okay, I get that. But you can't be a cop because you're too damn big.
Too damn big. He also grew up in a hospital with men, as we had said before. So the poor guy had no social skills at all that related to being around women. Mm-hmm. So this was like a really like big issue for him because he never learned how to interact with them. I mean, he went in at 15, which again is kind of like that peak of the adolescence. He was always the weird kid at school before that. So it's not like he had never been on a date at this point at 21 years old. And the only female interaction that he's ever actually had is with his mother, which we all know was extremely toxic and bad. So, he's very awkward because of this lack of social skills. And everybody in town just kind of sees him as this, like, annoying guy who just hangs around. Like, no big deal. Oh, it's just Ed,
Yeah.
Big Ed, that guy. He actually kind of wanted to be seen this way. He quotes at one point, "The guy who's just a friendly nuisance flies under the radar," which that makes a good point. He was always kind of quirky, and everyone in town just really didn't think much about it. He does end up working for the highway department, where they gave him the nickname Forklift because he could pick up 3 bags of concrete at one time.
Jeez, please.
Yeah. So.
Well, I guess if you're that big, you can do that.
Yeah. When he and his mother would fight, he would go and drive around to, like, just blow off steam. And it's the 70s, so everyone's hitchhiking. So he would just drive around and pick up people. He says that he really, like, started picking up women because he thought, well, if I'm taking them where they're going, they have to talk to me, so maybe I can hone in some of these skills, to, like, talking to them and being around them. So it was almost kind of like a way to blow off steam. He didn't want to be in the house with his mother, but he also thought, hey, I might meet some people. I could be friends with these people. So, this is kind of what he starts doing, driving around, picking people up. He says that he had picked up over 150 people and had let them go just to see if he could. You're kind of starting to see, like, it was never really, he can claim all day long, like, oh, it was about meeting people and it was about, honing in these social skills. But, like, you kind of knew in the back of your head, like...
Right.
He's testing the waters here. It's really creepy. It's really fucking creepy. He eventually starts testing his limits by hiding guns in the car. They would start in the trunk. And then they would end up in the back seat. And then they'd slowly end up in the front seat underneath the seats. Like, just to see how far he could go with it. Yeah. This went on for months until May 7th of 1972. He had a terrible fight with Mommy. He was absolutely raging. He picked up 18-year-old Mary Ann Pesci and Anita Lucchesa, who was also 18. They were hitchhiking from Berkeley, California to Stanford University. And they were actually holding a sign with Stanford on it. We're going to go through the victims now. So I'm just going to give you guys a trigger warning. It gets pretty rough. And as I stated before, he is a necrophiliac and a very twisted dude. So, if you need to skip forward, you can. But... We're going to kind of go into all of that now. So, also, I wanted to tell, the only photos that we're going to be sharing on our social media post are the victims. We don't need any more pictures of him. He's, notorious enough at this point.
Right.
So we will be posting all of the pictures of just the victims on our post. Anita had attended the Davis High School in Modesto, California. She had been a part of many clubs in high school during her time there. She was part of the German Club, American Field Service, and the Science Club. I've actually found some of her yearbook club photos, and
cool.
She seems like a really, really fun and like active girl. So that's Anita. And this is her freshman year in Yell Leaders.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's maybe kind of like a cheerleader type thing, maybe back in the day, like a spirit club.
Looks like it.
Maybe. And there she is in her club photo. American Field. This one. I love this one.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're like standing on top of the football goal. And I mean, like I said, she just looks like a really fun girl who was interested in a lot of stuff.
Science club.
Yeah, I mean, she was a busy, busy girl. Her friend, Mary Ann Pesci, was a student at San Francisco State and was actually Anita's roommate. I unfortunately couldn't find as much stuff on her other than her photo and description in an old newspaper article from the San Francisco Enquirer, which was published in May of 1972. All of the photos that you're going to find of Miss Mary Ann are all black and white. So I am going to tell you how beautiful she was. She had blue eyes with brown hair cut in like a really cute shag style. Kind of like a bob, what we would call that today. She was only 5'1", so she was short like me. We would have gotten along. The two girls had been visiting friends in Berkeley and just planned to kind of hitchhike their way home. They truly thought that this was no big deal. Ed picked them up and lied when he told them that she was going to Stanford. So Anita got into the back seat and Mary got into the front. He drives them to a deserted area and suddenly handcuffs Mary and puts Anita in the trunk. He goes back to Mary and tries suffocating her. This girl bit through the bag that he put over her head because she's a badass. That does not work. She's putting up a fight, and it's almost like Ed is surprised by this.
Why are you surprised?
Yeah.
Somebody is going to try to defend themselves.
Yeah, he was not expecting them to fight back. This is what I'm saying about being like panicky and unorganized. Like, I mean, did he really think that these girls were just gonna, let him do this? And like, it's just so confusing. But he's baffled by the fact that this isn't working and that she's putting up such a fight. So he kind of freaks out and ends up eventually stabbing her because that's all he could come up with. He hadn't planned on killing her this way, and like I said, was really taken aback by it, like kind of in shock. At least that's how he describes it, of course. He was completely deflated and describes this murder as hard and horrible. You think?
I feel like all murders are.
Yeah. He remembers thinking that he was having such a hard time stabbing her because the knife that he was using wasn't all that swell of a knife. His own words.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So he's very shaken up and has to figure something out with poor Anita, who is still in the trunk. He is covered in blood and tells Anita, "Your friend got smart with me and I hit her in the nose and I think I broke it. You need to come see if she's okay." When she gets out of the trunk, he stabs her too, but once again claims this to be kind of like another mercy killing. He says that he really didn't want her to see what he had done to her friend inside of the car. So it's like just a lot of mind games going on here, He also says that he was very careful not to stab her in the breasts.
That's weird.
Because he couldn't imagine like hurting a woman there.
But you can stab her everywhere else, like it doesn't hurt.
No
What
problem.
the fudge?
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it had anything to do with pain. I think it was more symbolic of like
Because she's a woman.
Because she's a woman, exactly. Right. So he is in the process of stabbing her. I guess he just remembers that this knife isn't all that great, and he does actually end up strangling Anita, which is what killed her. He puts both women in the trunk and drives home. He actually gets pulled over by the police officers for a broken taillight on his way home. He's got 2 dead bodies in the back of his trunk. He's got
blood all over him.
I'm telling you, dude. He, of course, plays it cool, though. The cop gets out and sees that it's just good old Ed.
Oh, Lord.
It's just Ed. Got a broken tail light, buddy. And he even offers to open the trunk to see if, like, the wiring had messed up. And the cop's like, nah, man, don't worry about it. And lets him fucking go. Now, I can't blame the cops here, okay, at this point. I mean, it's a broken tail light. Like, I get it.
But but does he still have all the blood on him? Like,
I don't know how he really talks his way out of that. He might have changed his shirt. I really couldn't tell you. I'm just letting you know. Like I said, he's the gentle giant. The cop thinks nothing of this.
He is not the gentle giant.
And Ed gives him no reason to think anything is a big deal, like, other than this broken tail.
He's now killed 4 people.
He has. That's correct. But he's just a friendly nuisance around town.
Yeah, okay.
So, when he gets home, and I'm just going to go ahead and let you know, I'm only going to describe this for you guys once. A, for the sake of time. B, because we just don't need to relive it over and over again. His MO is the same with all of his victims. So everything that I'm telling you happened to these 2 poor young women are going to be what's the fate of the rest of our victims as well, but I'm not going to go into it over and over again. So again, just trigger warning if you need to skip ahead. He rapes their corpses, takes explicit photos of their bodies posed in various manners, dismembers and penetrates their body parts before putting those body parts into plastic bags and disposing of them in different locations. He says he watched a lot of crime shows, which is how he knows, like, how to do this correctly and not get caught. He said he would always cut off his victims' hands and heads because they were the most identifiable and would possibly get him caught. So he made sure that those were never found with the bodies. To this day, some of these women have never been fully found. He's a disgusting monster, y'all. I mean, like I said, I know that we had to go through his childhood, but once again, tons of people go through traumatic lives and they don't grow up to do this. So,
right.
It's not an excuse. At this point, he goes back to just giving women rides. He thinks to himself, okay, I got this out of my system. I don't have to do this anymore. He even says that in some cases, these women are going missing, right? And it's creating buzz in the news. So it's not like these women are, he doesn't just stick to, like, women who are considered to be less dead. Mm-hmm. If, we've used that term before. I mean, he's killing regular co-eds, college-age girls who have social lives and friends and stuff like that. So these missing people are going, reported. And he says that sometimes whenever he would pick up people hitchhiking, that they would, like, talk to him about it. Like, describing, who they think this guy is, what he's like, what's going on. And he says that if they did that, they were sealing their free ride. Like, he would not kill them because it was, like, too risky.
What the heck?
Mm-hmm. He also said he never drank before the murders because he needed to be fully in control of himself. Alcohol breeds violence, you guys. Don't do
Just
that.
Tequila. Just tequila.
Just tequila. So after killing Mary and Anita, he flies under the radar for quite some time, but this, of course, doesn't last. He and his mother once again get into a knockdown drag-out, and he leaves again on September 14th. Unfortunately, this time he picks up a 15-year-old girl named Akio Ku in Berkeley. Akio was hitchhiking from dance class because she had missed the bus and was actually a well-known ballet dancer. She was a student who was very smart and had her eye on a job in politics when she got older. He pulls a gun on her this time. Now, he hadn't used a gun the first time, but she, of course, freaks out when she sees it. Of course she does. Who wouldn't? He says this freaks him out, so he puts it away. Yeah. He actually ends up, at one point, locking himself out of his car with the gun and the keys, and Akino, in the car. She's in the car, and he's locked himself out. And he says at this point, she had everything. Like, she could have just left. And somehow this motherfucker convinces her to unlock the fucking door.
Absolutely not. I would have drove away.
Mm-hmm. Once he's back in the car, he did say that he strangled her and that she did fight back pretty hard. He's 7 feet tall, and she's 15-year-old girl. He puts her in the trunk, then stops for a beer on his way home. You know the rest. On the way to dispose of her severed head, he stops at his mandated court psychiatric appointment, where he is deemed legally sane and no longer a threat to others, and described as a well-adjusted young man by 2 different doctors. This was the appointment where his juvenile record was sealed. Her head is in his car.
I can't even find my words.
Unfortunately, she is one of the victims that was never found. It was also during this time that the police were, like I said, alerting the public of these missing people, and they were advising people not to accept rides from anyone without a university sticker on their car. But guess who had one of those?
Oh, Ed did.
Ed Kemper had one of those.
Of course he did.
His mommy works at the university. So she got a sticker and he got a sticker.
Thanks, Mom.
Yep. On January 8th, 1973, he picked up Cynthia Shaw. She went by Cindy and was 19, studying to be a teacher at her college. She had a babysitting job in Santa Cruz, and that was probably the reason that she was in the area. He buried her severed head in his backyard, facing his mother's window, because, quote, she always wanted people to look up to her, unquote.
You creepy little fucker.
Yeah. He remembers this murder by explaining that he was getting less detectable. He had actually severed Cindy's head in his backyard at 11 o'clock at night with the lights on. He said all his neighbors had to do was walk outside. This was also the time where he started removing the bullets from his victims' skulls. This was a tactic that, again, he learned that said made him less detectable. So that kind of becomes part of his MO as well. After a particularly bad fight with his mom on February 5th of 1973, he picks up Rosalind Thorpe, who was 23, and Alice Liu, who was 21. Rosalind was a smart girl who had many friends and was getting her degree in linguistics and psychology at UCSC and shared an apartment downtown with a bunch of her girlfriends. She was actually on her way to campus to attend a lecture. Alice was a young Oriental woman. She was one of 4 sisters who also had a roommate named Julie and regularly hitchhiked to and from campus. Was on her way home after attending a late class on campus. When the 2 girls didn't show up where they were supposed to be, their roommates called the police and the news spread about their disappearance pretty quickly. He really escalated with these 2, though. As soon as he picked them up, like immediately upon shutting the door, he shoots them in the head. Like just on campus, like while they're still on campus. He doesn't even take time to like drive to a deserted area.
Nobody hears the gunshots. Like,
I'm very surprised that nobody did. It was late at night, but anyway, he then puts a blanket over one of them and then a jacket over another one and then passes by a freaking security booth on campus on his way out. Who kind of like stops him and is kind of curious about him. Like he's got a flashlight, and Ed just like says that he acts really annoyed. Like, you know, come on, are we really going to do this, dude? You know, and the officer just kind of waves him on. Again, 2 dead bodies in the car.
what the heck?
Yeah. Now, I said he really escalated with them. When he gets home, in the fucking driveway, in front of the neighborhood and everyone, he decapitates them in his trunk. He doesn't even bother to take the women inside. Doesn't bother to take their bodies in the house. He just does it in the driveway. Nobody walks by, somehow. The town is buzzing. There is pressure on the police to get these missing women's cases solved. The town is scared. They're checking up on people, and a detective by the name of Michael Olafi gets word that Ed has a gun. And due to his previous parole and stuff like that, they weren't really 100% sure if he could legally have this gun. It was a revolver. They decide to go and talk to him about it and take the gun away. And when they get there, he's like working inside of his car. And, whenever they roll up to speak with him, he gets out of the car. And Michael says that when he gets out of the car, he gets out of the car, and he gets out of the car, and he gets out of the car. Like, that's how big this guy was. Like, he's just this massive person. They ask him about the gun, and he's like, oh, yeah, it's in the trunk. He gets the gun out for them, gives it to them, and they end up leaving. He says that during this time, he had personal effects and the IDs of Rosalind and Alice in his bedroom, along with a .22 pistol that they didn't know he had in the car under the seat.
Oh, my Lord, have mercy.
Yeah. On April 20th, 1973, on Good Friday, Ed is awoken by his mother, Clarnell, coming home from a party where he says that she had gotten completely sloshed. Remember, she's a heavy drinker. He gets up and goes into her room, and she says to him, quote, I suppose you want to just sit up and talk all night now. Very, Cass. Just Ed replies with, no, good night. And at 5:15 a.m. that same day, I'm assuming he doesn't sleep because he knows he's going to kill her at this point. He says at one point that he knew a week beforehand that he was going to kill her. But I'm assuming he doesn't sleep. He goes into his mother's bedroom, and while she is sleeping, he kills her with a clawfoot hammer.
Oh, my Lord.
He decapitates her, puts her head on the mantle, and throws darts at it for a while.
What the hell?
He then starts screaming at it for several hours. He penetrates her severed head, cuts out her tongue and larynx, and then puts them in the garbage disposal in the sink and turns it on.
Holy shit.
Unfortunately, the disposal is not working, and everything starts popping back up out of the sink, and this makes Ed very, very angry. Because really what he's...
Angry? I would have puked.
What he's trying to do here is silence this woman. To pull her voice box out and to shove it into a garbage disposal. He says for it to just keep coming back at him, he says it's very symbolic of who she was and the relationship they had. And he starts in this moment screaming, even now, you're still nagging me. Yeah. And I don't even mean to laugh, y'all. This is terrible, but it's an uncomfortable laugh.
Right.
If you will. He's completely gone off the deep end at this point. Then he goes to the bar, decides he needs a drink. Later that day, he calls his mother's friend, Sally Hallett, who is 59. And I am extremely confused by this at this point. Because his mother is now dead. He says over and over and over again that she's the reason.
Right.
All of this was her. I was just killing my mother over and over again. Okay, well, you just spent the night, literally humiliating her remains. And that's not doing it for you? Maybe it wasn't a mommy issue after all.
Right.
Maybe you're just a psychopath.
Right.
I don't know. But he calls Sally and invites her over for dinner. She says yes, and as soon as she walks into the house, he kills her as well and spends the night with her body. He then steals Sally's car and drives around for 3 days popping no-dos, which is like a caffeine pill, And he is during this time that he's driving around, he's intently listening to the radio, waiting for this huge manhunt to ensue. Nothing happens. They're not on to him. He thinks he's running, right? And when he doesn't hear, he makes it all the way to Colorado, right? And when he doesn't hear anything on the radio, he decides to call the police himself.
On himself?
Yes. This right here, once again, just you were waiting for some sort of epic,
right,
thing to happen, to go down in your glory. You know what I'm saying? And it didn't happen. You're just looking for the attention. Exactly. That's what I get from this. And I think that that's the reason that he's so vocal, too.
Yeah.
I think that he
didn't get the attention that he deserved when he was little.
Mm-hmm.
So here he goes doing all this stuff and thinks that it's going to
give him some sort of notoriety.
Right, be this big old thing where, like, everybody's looking at him and all that, which, I mean, they are now because you are a freaking serial killer, but...
If he hadn't conducted all these interviews after his arrest, we probably wouldn't know him near as well.
No, not at all.
He is infamous because he won't shut up. So, anyway, he's waiting for this, like, crazy manhunt to ensue. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't happen. So he's in Colorado. He calls the police, and this brings us back to the phone booth at the beginning of our story.
Last Saturday morning, about 5:15 a.m., I told my mother, at approximately 7:55 that evening, I told a friend of hers.
He makes this phone call and confesses to not only killing his mother, but to also killing his mother's best friend, and to being the co-ed killer, who they had coined the name at that point in the headlines and stuff. They think it's a prank call, and they hang up on him. Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
He has to call back and confess again before they take him seriously. He's still standing there. He's waiting to be arrested. And they decide to bring him back in a car from Colorado back to California. They decide to drive because they're concerned that a man of his size freaking out on an airplane would be like a bad situation. Yeah. The detective that came to compensate the gun, Michael, he's the same detective that goes and picks him up. And he sits in the back seat with him for 3 days during this trip. And he says that by the end of this trip, he's, like, just ready for the guy to shut up. Because, like, he just won't stop talking. Like, he's just telling them everything that he's done, why he thinks he did it. He's got all these theories, you know. And he says, I just wish that he would be quiet at this point. They make it back to California where he is booked. And during this booking process, he's filling out like all of their paperwork and stuff. And he says that he has nobody left to put down as his emergency contact, and looks at Michael and asks if he can use him. And Michael agrees.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah. So Michael, the detective, Michael, is his emergency contact. All right. So he's now in jail. He's arrested. He is going for an insanity plea because, I mean, come on, what else is left?
Of course he is.
He's already sung like a canary. And so the only thing they have left is an insanity plea. And I would like to point out that he's looking pretty good for it. At one point, though, he confesses to cannibalism just to, like, oomph up this.
Of course he does.
He quickly recants that, though. The minute they're like, we're not giving you that insanity plea, he's like, oh, by the way, I didn't eat anybody. Like, that makes it better, you know. His trial started October 23rd of 1973, and 3 doctors deem him legally sane and fit for trial. On November 8th, he was found guilty. He originally asked for the death penalty, requesting torture as the method.
That's just weird.
This was denied. And he was sentenced to 7 years to life for all 8 counts that he was charged with. And he was still placed in the California Medical Center, where he was reevaluated and was diagnosed with antisocial narcissistic personality disorder. But not schizophrenia. So, now I told you earlier that his murder spree was just as interesting as the time he spent in prison for it, right? So he was interviewed in prison many, many times. He would talk to anyone who would listen. But the most infamous interviews are ones conducted by FBI agent John E. Douglas, who uses these interviews for the FBI's advantage. The guy literally revolutionized the way that law enforcement did their jobs. They really were like trying to create this new tactic in the behavior analysis of serial killers. Mm-hmm. And they kept trying to go in with what they called a rehabilitation approach, whereas these interviews made it so that they were really trying to stop the criminal in his tracks, to prevent them, so it really took a turn. And these interviews are actually still used in training courses today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he was so open.
Yeah.
I mean, he would answer any question the man had. But yeah, so they were, like I said, these interviews really allowed them to understand who they were dealing with. And Ed, eventually would actually help analyze the behaviors of other criminals. So, like, the FBI would bring him these profiles of these people that they were hunting, and Ed would, talk to him about it and be like, oh, yeah, this guy, you need to look for this because of A, B, and C. Yeah. Pretty crazy. The fact that he never held anything back from them during these interviews is what sets him apart from other people who had attempted to do this in the past. And to this day, he is still considered a model prisoner. He is still alive and incarcerated. He is now 75 years old and is actually back to helping prison staff administer psychiatric tests.
No, why are we doing that again? Whoever is letting him do this, please stop.
He's never getting out, though, this time.
I don't give a crap. Ed, stop. Now. This is not okay.
Yep. He has lent his voice to thousands of hours of recording audiobooks.
If I listen to an audiobook and it is his voice, I swear to God.
We're about to hear some of it. I'm going to play you guys some of the interviews.
Myself.
He causes literally no problems in jail, and the guards and staff actually enjoy him quite a bit. He's friendly and helpful around the prison to this day, and John Douglas describes him as quote, among the brightest prison inmates he has interviewed and capable of rare insight for violent criminals. Adding that he personally likes Ed and says he is friendly, open, sensitive, and has a good sense of humor.
Okay. Maybe because he finally got this recognition that he wanted when he was a child, he is now gonna be the adult he would have been if he wouldn't have killed these people. That's just a thought.
It's a good possibility. I mean, like I said, I think I think that definitely his mother was a catalyst to this, but I don't believe that. I personally think it was an excuse, though, just to let that side out of him. I mean, don't get me wrong, terrible childhood, definitely trauma there. I do believe that he is suffering some mental illness.
Definitely.
And I definitely think that antisocial is a great way to describe him. But I'm not sure if I 100% believe that if he hadn't confessed that he would have stopped, because I don't understand the point of why he did the last. Why did he kill Sally? His mother was already dead. What was the point of inviting her over? He set all of that up. It's not like she just showed up unannounced and he thought.
Would have still kept doing it.
Yeah.
He enjoyed it. He enjoyed doing those things that he did to the bodies and. Ugh.
Yeah. It's really easy to say, well, I'll never kill again when you're in prison for life,
Well, yeah, but you don't need to let him out.
Exactly.
Because I could see it, 75 years old or not, he would do it again. Why would he not?
I think so.
He might not for a little bit when he gets out, but then once reality hits him of how the world works today, and it isn't like it was 75 years ago, he's going to get overwhelmed and he's going to go back to do these awful things just so he can land right back in prison.
I think that all it would take, if they were to ever let him out, even at 75, I think that all it would take would be a rejection from a woman.
Oh, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that is part of I think
or
that's the catalyst.
To say anything demeaning to him.
Yep, I think that's the catalyst. I think that he looked at women from his mother's perspective. His mother was a terrible woman, treated him like crap. No other woman ever gave him the time of day. Right. So I think that it was really more so. He didn't have a type, he wasn't killing like Ted Bundy, for instance.
Right. Bundy was killing people that looked like his mother.
Yes, exactly. And like
his first
Diane.
Love. Yeah.
I just think, you know what I'm saying? This was not Ed's case.
Yeah. No, he was just doing it.
Anybody who would get in his car, and anybody who got in his car was a potential victim. It was not, I think it had more to do with women.
Yeah.
Not necessarily his mother.
Right.
saying I've wanted to kill my mother since I was 8 years old, and I'm not proud of that. It started with surrogates at a non-human level. Physical objects, my possessions, other people's, destruction of things that are cared about, and then destruction of things that are living on a lower level, small animals, insects, animals, and then finally people. It started coming to a head again, so I went back down. I ran away back down there. And then a month later, I'm up living with my grandparents in the mountains, and 10 months later, I murdered them. And it made it worse to be on top of a mountain. I was literally on top of a mountain when it happened. And I sensed everybody in the world just stopping what they were doing, turning around, saw what I did, and are coming to get me. And I knew I was paranoid at that moment. I knew anybody that came up there and gave me a funny look or a fishy eye or quizzical look, I'd have blown their brains out thinking they were coming to get me. And if it had been in a city, I would have been a mass murderer at age 15. I would have killed until they gunned me down. I wouldn't have been able to reason my way out of it. I was scared to death, and I was violent. I felt my back hit that wall. I was the rabbit that always ran, that always backed away, always burned his bridges. And suddenly there weren't any more, and my back hit that wall, and I came out screaming and kicking and shooting. Inside, I was doing sexual probings and things. I mean, in the sense of striking out and reaching out and grabbing and pulling to me, but appalled at the sense that it wasn't working. That isn't the way it's supposed to be. It isn't the way I want it. See what I'm saying? And yet during that time, I become engaged to someone who's young and is beautiful and very much the same advantages and very much the same upbringing and Disneyland values. And such one-word realities like that. There's a lot that leads into that happening, but that is what happened. They represented not what my mother was, but what she liked, what she coveted, what was important to her, and I was destroying it.
Why did you actually kill the girls?
My frustration, my inability to communicate socially, sexually. I wasn't impotent, but emotionally I was impotent. I was scared to death of failing in male-female relationships. I knew absolutely nothing about that whole area.
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He had no idea how to hang out and to be around the opposite sex. I don't think this has near as much to do with his mother as he makes it out to be.
Whether you still had this fear of hanging out with the opposite sex, I still do not feel like that justifies you to go out here and murder women.
Oh, absolutely not. Nothing justifies that for sure. But
like, you can give me whatever excuse you want in the book.
That's what I'm saying.
And it's
that right there, what you just said.
It's not okay.
It's an excuse. It's playing the victim. Oh, poor me.
Yes.
Poor me. Woe is me.
Poor, pitiful me.
Poor, pitiful Eddie. I think that first prison sentence in that hospital was what sealed everything at that point. There were no women there. He was, he grew up in that setting, and I think that's what he came out of it, and that's all he knew was what all of these other people had done, what they had taught him.
Even if just sitting down and talking with the young lady, but the mechanics behind that, the logic, I mean, that intensely, that honestly, it hurts. Because I'm not a lizard. I'm not from under a rock. I came out of her vagina. See? Came out of my mother. And in a rage, I went right back in. For 7 years, she said, I haven't had sex with a man because of you, my murderous son. It's one of our arguments. I cut off her head. And I humiliated her corpse. So there. A 6 young woman dead because of the way she raises her son and the way her son is raised, the way he grows up. And what's her closing words? I suppose you want to sit up all night and talk. God, I wish I had. Her girlfriend come over and put her hands there to catch her head so it wouldn't fall in the basket, And he was making jokes about this. I got caught up in this interplay between normal concerns. You don't want to get a bump on her head. Well, hey, if you're chopping her head off, it doesn't matter. I'm saying, wow. The first time, okay, the 2 girls were killed around 6 p.m. By 11 the next morning, they are both completely gone out of my life, physically. All right, that's not even 24 hours. The third murder, which is the second incident, okay, I'm in the middle of trying to get my record sealed, right? Thursday night, I killed her. I took off Friday. I didn't go to work. I called in sick, took CTO. All right? Dismembered her body. Got rid of her body, but kept her head and her hands because they're identifiable. They're highly identifiable. I kept those at the apartment. Okay? That Friday night, Thursday night, I took her. Friday morning, she was dismembered. Friday night, she was disposed of. Right? Saturday morning, I left. Right? And I wasn't satisfied that I took the head along and the hands, but I couldn't put them someplace that could be sure they would be dug up by an animal or just be somewhere. It's scary going out there trying to bury somebody or dispose of body parts in a community or out even in the boonies where you don't know where you're at and who can come up at any moment. I had some real close calls there where people that come out of nowhere. And I made a point of saying back then with the investigators, when I pulled the knife out and locked it in a place, it clicked. And she said, "What's that?" That's a quote. "What's that?" And she was kind of like a naggy kind of thing. "What's that?" And I couldn't figure out why she said that. Like, it's not that big an impact. A little clicking sound behind her, amongst what's going on. And it hadn't been murderous up to that point. It had been an aggravation, and I had her tied up or handcuffed. And it took me years for it to dawn on me, trying to look at it from different points of view to understand these things. Why she said that. You know why she said that? Because I had brandished this gun. And I had cocked it once, and it clicked. So in her mind, very possibly, I had pulled the gun out and was going to shoot her. So she said, "What's that?" And thinking I've pulled the gun out now and I'm cocking it. Not realizing I'd pulled a knife out. I still had the gun in my pants. I stabbed her. She didn't fall dead. You're supposed to fall dead. You're supposed to go, "Oh," and fall dead. I've seen it in all the movies, right? Doesn't work that way. When you stab someone, they leak to death. They lose blood pressure, and you stab them more and more and more. You complicate it many times by where you're hitting, the pain you're causing, and the aggravation of the person involved, plus whether or not they leak a little faster.
So I want to point out a couple of things here. Is first, the way that he describes these things in these interviews, it's all very eclectic. I was on top of a mountain, and I was up there by myself alone. It's all metaphoric.
People are looking up at me.
Yeah, it's also very metaphoric and poetic. It's just a bunch of bullshit is what it is. And he uses, you can see how he has absolutely no regard for human life at this point as well, because, I'm sorry, but humans, they do not leak. They bleed. To say they leak, and you can hear how surprised he was it doesn't happen that way. They're supposed to just fall dead. Like, he's surprised that these women are fighting back and that they're putting up a struggle. And he's like, because of all those crime shows that he had watched and got so good at all this stuff, it's like he's not living in reality,
right?
In any way, shape, or form. He doesn't seem very eager to get out of jail either. He has been denied parole several times, which, is obviously no surprise. But some of those years, he actually waived his right to a hearing at all. So,
he should stay there. It's okay.
Yeah. He was last denied in 2017, and he will be eligible for parole again in 2024. Agent John Douglas was the inspiration for the popular Netflix show Mindhunter. Have you watched that yet?
I haven't. I need to.
Well, Casey recommended it to us whenever he did his episode on H.H. Holmes. And I know that a ton of you guys have also said we're going to watch it. I promise. I don't watch a lot of television, and so it's not.
I don't have time.
It's not at the top of my list. But I'm very interested in the show, and I definitely want to watch it. I'm glad that we did the story
maybe we
first.
Can watch it when we do my birthday trip, and we could just binge it in the hotel.
That would be a ton of fun. And in 2022, a mandate did require that all cars have to have a glow-in-the-dark release lever inside of the trunk that opens it from the inside. In case you ever need that.
I've had one of those in all my vehicles since I turned 16.
Yeah, so that is the story of Ed Kemper, the co-ed killer. Well, we are so thrilled that you guys were able to take this crazy ride with us. Stuck with us through another episode. Like I said, this one was a big one. In more ways than one. But
that's not funny. I mean, it is funny, but
No, seriously, you guys, your support, it just means the world to us. It really does. We're tickled to death to be able to do this for you guys and, to have made so many friends and stuff. I know that we always tend to get kind of sappy during these parts, but we really do appreciate each and every one of you guys so much. You've given us a reason to get together and to hang out more often and a reason to, be a part of this crazy true crime community. And we're just so excited to be here and in this space. We do have some big news, and you will be seeing some more of this coming up, on our social media pages. So please stay tuned onto all of those. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, Facebook, all of that good stuff. But we've got some really exciting stuff for you guys coming out. Our next episode that's going to be posting is going to be a crossover episode with another podcast, a new member of our freaky family, Crime Over Wine with Liam Collins. That episode was a ton of fun. We're not going to tell you who it is yet.
No, but you guys have to check it out. It's so much fun.
Yep, we're not going to tell you who we're doing or what we're covering, so you guys are going to have to check it out. It will be a 2-part episode, so we are going to be covering the first part of the case, and then you're going to have to jump over to Crime Over Wine and visit Liam and check him out for the second part of the episode. So it is going to be a 2-parter. So definitely stay tuned for that. We're super excited to get that out and ready for you guys. And the next big announcement that we have is we have officially decided on a launch date for our Patreon.
Whoop, whoop.
Yay!
The infamous whoop whoop.
So we have been throwing around crazy ideas, and we've been talking and chatting about what we wanted this Patreon to be for us and for you guys. Kind of a more in-depth, very loosey-goosey kind of discussion, if you will. Maybe we can talk about some stuff that didn't make it into the episode. Yeah. Maybe we can dive a little deeper into some of our crazy theories that we've come up with, and just give us a chance to kind of connect with you guys and
go on those tangents that you might possibly miss that we do go on.
Yes.
Because we do.
Yes. So kind of a little bit more of kind of a behind the scenes situation. We've come up with a slumber party theme. So it's going to be the Sips of Crime. Our Patreon is going to be slumber party. We had just a couple of rules for it. Mm-hmm. It was, we did decide that we wanted to do video.
Yep.
So we will be on camera. You'll get to see all of the wine faces that Kandi makes. But we also decided that if we were going to be on video, that we were not going to be in a position where we had to get all dolled up and ready to go.
No, we're being in our PJs.
Yeah, so we have decided that we're doing a slumber party in our PJs. So we're going to cuddle up on the floor and have a snack, and we're going to make a cocktail, and we're going to just deep dive into some of these cases. But we've got a bunch of really fun segments planned for that. We also really wanted to shout out a couple of people just who have really been huge supporters here recently. Yes. And one of those people actually did a suggestion recently, Albert Fish, our beautiful freaky family member, Jennifer Hupp. We are actually going to be giving her her own segment on our Patreon page. She has just absolutely went above and beyond. She tags us in all of these crazy stories on Facebook, and we have just had an absolute ball, going through them and reading up on them and stuff. So we have tasked her with just continuing to tag us and stuff because she was already doing it. And we would kind of go through all of her stuff and shout her out on our Patreon. So she's going to have her own little segment on there. We are going to be starting off our Patreon at $1 a month. As of right now, we just want it to be as accessible as it can be for anybody. And $1 is the absolute lowest that we can make it. So, as we kind of grow and get a little bit more into it and kind of learn what we're actually doing, because I'm here to tell you, we have no idea what we're doing. That might change. But as of right now, it's going to be $1 a month, and we really hope that you guys sign up and enjoy that extra bonus content. We're just really excited to kind of see where it takes us and see where it goes. And we hope that you have a great rest of your week. Bye! You can join our freaky family both on Instagram and Facebook and find all of the featured photos from this episode at Sips of Crime.
Check out our website, www.sipsofcrime.com. There you can get to know a little about us and stay up to date with our monthly newsletter. We love connecting with our listeners and enjoy sharing your personal true crime, paranormal, or just downright funny stories. So submit those through the form provided on the website.
You can also help us grow our freaky family by sharing the podcast with others. And of course, let's not forget rocking our merch.
Thanks for listening.
Stay alive.